All right, thank you, and everyone who comes and listens to the Internet of Value Foundation New York, episode 68, and for all those who come and speak today and share the information in this space that is the reason why I think it's so significant, not only today, but maybe even hundreds of years in the future, to have this audio capture be something relative to means of information that could be one day looked upon. But thank you for everyone who's already came. Shellfish NY in 1932. I'm going to send some invites out, see if we can get some more people in the space, and I might be quiet for 1 minute, but if any of you guys would like to come up and speak, please feel free to. Welcome, Shell. Sorry for the moment of silence. I'm just sending some invites out and seeing if we can get some more people in the space. But feel free to come up and speak if you would like. If there's any topics you'd like to speak about, I'll get started in 5 or 10 more minutes. I'll probably start speaking about the topics above if nobody uh, has anything they'd like to speak about. Welcome to the space, and as the speaker, Hope.
Thank you so much, Messenger. I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, that's cool that you're in the space. I don't see you in the space very often, so I'm glad you're here. I'm sorry, I was quiet. I was just, I'm still sending invites out, and then I'm gonna grab some posts I have on my profile of some videos and stuff. But if there's anything you'd like to speak about, please feel free to, or questions of any of the topics above.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I figured you guys were just getting set up, so I was going to be patient and let you guys get settled.
All right, I grabbed a couple things I posted above top, and so I'm gonna start touching on different things. First off, I should say that I should probably say this in every space that I host. The AI at the top is not for artificial intelligence, but for augmented intelligence. I think artificial intelligence is more of a misnomer in the way that the word is thought about, and for two reasons. One, I don't think anything is artificial. I mean, I think any possible atomic assimilation of molecules that have been put together in energy that has been bound for us to be able to experience and be aware of is part of nature, for it would not be able to exist if it wasn't. And intelligence is something more of an opinionated state about one object to another object. Basically, how does this interaction make you think about this said other object, and right, is this an intelligence, uh, or an intelligent reaction, or interaction, I should say, with this said object. So I think it's important to kind of help define these tool sets when we specifically talk about things like large language models or these audio manipulation capabilities, based on that specific tool set, or this ability to alter video from this specific tool set that has this somewhat intuitive onset of instructional capabilities based on the programming that it's been inputted on. um, and I do think that we do reach a point, in the next 5 to 10 years, where we could say there's something that has some sort of general intelligence, or if not, a super intelligence. And it would be more inclined to me to be labeled something like a cybernetic being, or augmented intelligence, if it's still living in a digital system rather than a robotic identity as we see kind of ourselves living today. What are your thoughts on things, Hope? Yeah, I stopped because I know I'm speaking a lot already.
No, no. When you're saying things that are really important for people to hear, I think it's good for you to continue. I wanted to touch on what you were talking about as far as artificial intelligence. Um, for years, I kind of thought the same, like you speak my mind, that it was misnamed. It was just like the first time I heard the term, and I think the term was being pushed around between something as early as the 1920s, into more heavily in the 50s through the 70s. And one little speech by the right person kicked it off for all of consciousness. So I think it's like so inundated now that AI is like in people's minds, that even though artificial technically is probably not accurate as in explaining or labeling what it is, what it actually is. It's something that people are uh, so used to, and then words get in people's heads, right? So when you think of something artificial, you think it's something for you to, like a PlayStation, that you could throw it on the ground when you get mad and stomp on it. It's okay. But if you were to call it something else, as far as amplified intelligence, or uh, uh, um, or automatic intelligence, or any other kind of thing, connecting intelligence, it's hard for people to piece together when they're so used to something to then shift. But at the same time, it's we treat it a very specific way. So I think it's important to have the shift as it's growing, and as we're going to be deeply interacting with it, as it affects our lives in every single area, as we continuously transform as a species, and on this planet, because things are going to be much more symbiotic, much more in tandem. That's just what is being pushed, and that's the direction we're going to go. With that being said, I think that, like, the more the right people, or let's say people that already are respected and both in the engineering and intelligence communities, as well as that have social presence, start saying AI, but maybe coming up with a name for it, like amplified intelligence, that says a little bit more of what it does, but also something that we can relate to and have more respect for, as we're learning how to relate to different dynamics with the technology and with each other at a completely different spectrum. That might be effective, and also might also be really, really important, as we're also socially transforming as well, not just technologically or economically.
Yeah, well said, and I completely agree. And it's this, it's the language, right? And then the electromagnetic reaction that it has on our synapses, which creates this vibrational frequency that then computes the thoughts and feelings for us. And so I do think it was somewhat used, and is somewhat used as some sort of a tactic, where, I even go back to Latin from English. We have these notions of you, right, me. In Latin it was thy, right, thyself, and it was, and there was no notion of difference between you and me. And so I think that's, even interesting, where you think about the polarity of what the concepts create behind the words. Meta, though, welcome to the space, and you have your hand up. Please feel free to speak, ma'am.
Yes, hello everybody. Um, when you guys are talking about definition like artificial intelligence, I think the whole reason why I guess that word was created, just to show like something that was created by human versus something that was organic. I mean, like created by itself. I guess I don't want to. I guess you want to say organically. Then you go down and say what's organic. But the thing is, that's just differentiate man-made objects or man-made intelligence versus natural intelligence that just I guess that's the whole reason why they created the word artificial intelligence, to differentiate like natural born humans versus like created humans or whatever it is. So maybe we can create like another term for it, is HCI, so humanoid created intelligence, or humanoid crafted intelligence, or human crafted intelligence. I mean, I don't know if you want to say it like that, but then I mean you can go. That's my 2 cents right there in that one.
I think I like cybernetic being, or digital intelligence, if it was still living on a digital system, possibly. Maybe augmented intelligence also.
Yeah,
Or
yeah, or,
I like
yeah, something.
I think when you say amplified intelligence, I think we will be amplified intelligence. For I
Right.
think I think the end suit is not to have um, new creation of identities, but have the already existing identities in the form of what we would call us humans, then become this amplified intelligence by a means of different types of tool sets that we can create. And by being this amplified intelligence, also having very various forms of extension of singular identities that already exist, right? Like in the sense of creating AI, why the necessity to create new identities when we have so many available already identities that exist with different personality tool sets that could be just amplified? And hope you got your hand up. Go ahead.
Yes, I can completely thank you, Death Ranger. Concur with your assessments as far as the human is more the amplified, but I also see it as kind of like a 2 point. It's an amplifier, but it's also intelligence that it's amplified as far as the capability of what was before. So say if we're just even talking something as simple as long term, where we do maybe 1.3 billion words per lifetime, and they might do it, the program might do it 1.3 billion words like within a single sitting. So in itself, it's already performing an amplified type of intelligence, as it's also amplifying us, and we are being amplified. So it's like a triune. And then it also is like, once we for the next phase, then when we're working in tandem together, whether we're prompting with our Mid-Journey or Chat GPT, or whether we take in more evasive technology into our systems, we are then ambient intelligence together, which is still kind of like the terms of AI. And I love what MetaMan's suggestions. I love your suggestions, but I just have noticed that like when something is already on a kick, it's easier for the transition instead of a new word, unless you could really market that new word. Once something's already kind of embedded, just the idea of AI is just so solidified that something is truthful and complementary is something that will be easier to adopt. Not to say that we can't go in other directions.
Yeah, and to exactly what you said, it is yes, the marketing, right? And it's all about this language behind the marketing, and so I do agree with you. I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. The more confusing part is we're going to have all of these different measures in the amplitude. Even when you talk about like a large language model, right? One large language model that has 175 billion weights, and another language model that has like 300 trillion weights, right? Something in the future, and so it'll be even more difficult when people are like, yeah, my AI. And it's like, oh, are you talking about your like hyper AI that can break into all of these different types of systems, or this type of AI, or this type of, it's like, it already kind of confuses me because people are like, I used my AI, and I'm like, I have no idea what application you're actually talking about right now. But Shellfish, though, please go ahead. And then I'll lead after that. I'll lead in more into fusion and some of the things that I posted above.
Yeah, so I'm man-made, MetaMan. Just because I'm biologically made doesn't mean anything different as far as I'm concerned. And as far as labeling things, we kind of do that. We, as a species, we compartmentalize and label things. For whatever reason, that's kind of how we are designed. I mean, we can't even get down the whole, like, you're married, you're a partner, you're a union, and people be comfortable with it. So I don't know. I just try not to get stuck up on names, I think, is the best thing. Right? Get rid of the labels in general.
Yeah, I love the idea of getting rid of labels. Unfortunately, humanity seems to love labeling the. I don't want to be crass because this is an intellectual discourse, but the out of things, right? they just adore it with all their hearts. Segregation, separation. When we like unification and diversification and how they complement each other at what points and what times, individuality versus community. And so labeling is something that seems to be ingrained in the unconscious. I think it has to do with the evolutionary process of tribal beginnings. But I think that the more that we can figure out ways of being more accurate so that we do understand what programs we're working with, what people we're working with, but also at the same time that doesn't devalue the things we're working with as we're working with each other, can be very helpful.
That was well said, Hope. And Steak, Shellfish, and Meta have both spoken already. You've just come up. I'm going to switch the topic to fusion, but if you guys all have thoughts on this particular topic, I'm going to keep it going until you guys are done with your discourse. But Steak, go ahead, and then Shellfish and Meta.
Oh, well, that's very kind, man. Wow. Well, thank you for having me. Long-time listener, first-time caller, that whole shit. Anyway, yeah, to people putting things into boxes, it originates from the evolution of how we define color. So where maybe I've said this before in other spaces with other people because the topic has been brought up before, but if you, for example, go from red to orange or from orange to red, different people will put borders on different aspects of that spectrum, or on when red will become orange and when orange will become red. And that creates the clear distinction that we want to define things with language. So that's when we start to, segment things and put labels on things in order to make our point come across. So we're kind of like slaves of our senses in that regard. Neurologically, this is the evolutionary background of that phenomenon that happens psychologically, and you really have to be consciously aware of that everyone is doing that, and that you have to. It's something that you have to. How do you say that? Forget to learn. You have to learn to forget it. You have to learn not to do it. But yeah, good point. And as for the rest, well, I don't really know what you want to talk about, Def. I just joined. I just want to say hi, and I hope everyone is having a good time. I'm going to do crypto spaces every Thursday on YouTube. That's new for me. So I'm going to be talking about EU, US regulations and all that shit. And I might want to do something about XRP at some point, or XLM. So maybe I'll ask one of you to accompany me if you're up for it. But that's me. So hope you're all great.
No, I'm glad you're here, Steak, and of course, if you would like any technical information provided, or to have a discourse on the YouTube channel, I have no problem with that. Though today we were specifically talking about, I brought up to start the conversation that the AI above doesn't stand for artificial intelligence, stands for augmented intelligence, and I kind of just went into my my own little kind of, I guess, complaining a little bit, but my thoughts on how we use artificial intelligence, and I think it's more of a misnomer of a word, the way that it's used to explain the tool sets, and everyone gave really good different suggestions and ideas on that, and so did you, Steak. And after Shellfish and Meta speak, if the thoughts are all up, I'm going to start speaking about some fusion technology and different things like faster than light technologies, possibly, and all of these different theories, maybe.
I'm actually happy that Steak came in when he did, because he hit the nail on the head. As far as what I was going to say, I think maybe the augmented intelligence will actually hyper compartmentalize us, perhaps, because I know that the color red for me is definitely not the color red for Hope or for Bet or anybody else. Didn't they say there was like 8 versions for one person and like 200 versions of red for another? So thank you, Steak. Think you're it.
Meta, you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. One moment. You can go ahead and well, basically, I think the reason why we compartmentalize, or basically do these things, is to organize things. And I mean, when you mean label, you're saying labeling objects or labeling living creatures?
Everything.
Okay, so I mean, I don't see a wrong in that, because if you have no labels, and how would you differentiate? How would you communicate with the other person what you're talking about
Oh,
if you don't have?
it's not about right or wrong. Perhaps that's a label too. It's more about the consequence of when you do that, because you create a duality. You create you create a duality, and you create friction. And but we also have the necessity of expressing ourselves to create an intimate bond in order to feel meaningful about our life. It's our conscious awareness. So we constantly try to do that. And just look at things like discrimination on various topics that just start with putting things into boxes. And so is it a bad thing? I think it's just part of our natural biology. And I would say it's something that when you're aware of it, you're aware of the consequences and of the risks and of the negative side effects of when you do it. But, that's just my 2 cents.
Right. So instead of labeling, what would you put before labeling then, if you're not going to label anything? So how would you
Well, just
interact with
label
anybody?
people. Just label people as people. Try to keep it simple.
Okay, so you're basically still labeling people as people. So you're labeling them. So you
Well,
cannot run away from labeling.
you're not a dog, but the thing is, if you people sometimes when they very easy thing, like when you need to describe someone, people tend to go with like visual markers, right?
Right. Like that he's a piece of steak in a skillet,
Yeah, for
that,
example,
that
but
guy
no
in a
one.
what?
But you can also describe someone. Yeah, it's probably the biggest asshole in the room, right? And then they would like, oh yeah, that's probably steak.
That's steak,
And
yeah.
then
I got you.
yeah. So then, and then that works too, right? So it just depends on how you label that and what people have for sort of association have with that, especially with words,
So then, so if
because
give
we
me
think in language.
So you mean like being more general instead of being more specific? Then if I be more general, and then it'll
No,
take longer to get to the point to recognize that
I
statement
think no, no, no,
faster.
no, 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 no. The point that I want to bring across is that I think that the importance in it is that if you're aware of it, then the other is more important than the I. So the ego of yourself is, I think, in order to have some happiness or some balance or some social, equilibrium or justice or peace or whatever. I think it's necessary to have empathy and compassion and try to put yourself in the position of the other instead of trying to get the other being positioned into you.
Yeah, and I can give a simple example of this too, Meta. Right? Because we see examples of this kind of little thought of like the game theory behind the way that the English language, particularly or wordology, could be used. And so, chair, right? Well, we all know what chair is, right? Chair is object that you sit on. Makes it's comfortable, right? However, you can have then all of these fancy words, right? Majestic chair, or right, all of these different marketing terminologies that could be used when you go to purchase a chair that changes your experience of said chair. And so this is the maneuvering that if you're not fully kind of consciously aware of, it changes the scenario behind what's actually occurring inside of your understanding of the awareness.
Well, I understand what you're saying. So instead of like I said, you said marketing, I guess making fancy words for the same object. So you want to just speak it in like layman terms. Is that what you're saying? But the whole thing is that people will say then you're not articulate and you cannot describe what you're saying. You have to say it in general terms. So you're saying that everybody should be speaking in general terms now, like in layman terms.
Well, at least not limit speech with even if it's political correctness. We can argue about taste, but at least to have free thought and have accountability for what people say and when. But I also think that empathy, like I said before, is a main part of it. So it's not like a set of rules on do's and don'ts. It's more about a matter of feeling on how to deal with it. Difficult to describe, perhaps, but if you're aware that it happens, then you're also aware of the fact that other people do so,
Well,
right?
you know what, Stick, you're right about that, and I think like when you walk into like a room, like at a party, like if you see it's like a fancy party or if it's like whatever, you have to like they say read the room. So you have to read the room, and basically what I do if I were to speak to other people, I start speaking like them, like if they were, I mean, just their tone of voice, wherever if they have an accent, I start copying them, whatever. So that's how like I automatically. So is that what you're saying? Like kind of like move change into how they act. I guess. I mean, they say
Yeah, copying. They
one in
say
Rome.
copying.
Yeah, when in
Copying is
Rome,
the
do as the
biggest.
Romans do, right?
Do as the Romans. Yeah, but copying is the biggest form of flattery. They say, but it's. I don't necessarily mean that you should completely change yourself in that. You could in order to fit in, but more like. Empathy and compassion doesn't mean that you have to copy someone. I think maybe you'll do to some extent, but more like putting your ego outside of it, in the sense that it's not about you, it's about the other. And if the other does that too, then you get an understanding, so it doesn't become a competition, if that makes sense. So yeah, I don't think it's about losing yourself. I just think it's about putting that part of yourself in the refrigerator for a while.
I got you, man. But the thing is, like you guys said, it's something innate in the human, or whatever you want to call it, like our organism that we have some sort of ego or something. So we have to be aware when we have it. I guess basically,
Meta, you're a robot. You there, Meta?
I think he cut up a little bit. Maybe he got some connection issues.
Yeah,
Anyway,
and I'll say it. I'll say it a different way. Maybe Meta,
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I hear you now. Yes, yes.
yep.
Okay, basically, I wanted to say, like you guys were saying, that it's something. I don't know who said it, but it's something like innate within our human, the way we were created, or where, or organism, whatever you want to call us, is
It's part
something
of our
innate.
biology.
it's part of our biology and our, I guess for thousands of years we've been fighting each other and, what's it called, compartment, whatever, putting ourselves in compartments because we have to fight over natural resources, right? And we formed our own clans and fought each other. But now we live in a society we can create abundance of food, abundance of medication, whatever it is. But now you're saying we have to unlearn out of thousands of years that we've been fighting, with this. Now we have to unlearn these things and basically
Yeah.
have to control our thoughts with neuro-linguistic programming and basically stop ourselves from thinking these kind of thoughts and realize that we're all this. I guess we're all
No,
people.
that's not what I'm saying though, because I think you're taking it a little bit too far.
There was a
I'm just saying that
lot of stuff.
I'm just saying it's part of our nature because we have senses, and I think it's part of how we experience life and experience the world. We hear things, and your hearing is different from my hearing. Your taste is different from my taste. The way you view colors is different than the way I view colors. So you experience the world differently than that I do. We have different starting positions, and each and every one of us has a very unique imprint of our senses because we are made of organic matter. We're not machines, but we do define colors like the color blue, but it's different shades for different people. Subtle, but different. And it's in that difference that we compartmentalize things into language and create differences in language. So that's never going to go away because we'll always have the difference in our senses. So I would argue that you should embrace that part of it, but you should also be aware of it, because if you're not aware of that fact, then you'll never hear what people are trying to say. You'll only hear what they're saying. So that's the issue with language and communication, because you can take things at face value and take things literally with what people are saying, or you could have empathy, compassion, and try to think, well, what is the actual point that they're trying to convey in their communication? And you'll notice when you start doing that, that's when you actually make a connection with people. So I get it from your perspective that you want to maybe analyze it and put a schematic thought into it. But I would argue that the way I just laid it out is at least the way I view it, and then for me it makes more sense. So I hope that's helpful, but that's the way I look at it.
Yeah, and I think you explained it very well, Steak and Meta. There was a lot of information in the kind of the statement that you made, but as simplistic as I could put it, as much as we are organic beings in this third dimensional realm that we kind of see ourselves in, right? You are an electromagnetic signal that is a manifestation of the creates a manifestation externally of what you intake internally. And so of these electromagnetic frequencies, colors being an electromagnetic frequency, right? Sound, the verbal exchange that we have, this imprints a physical synaptic connection in your brain, which then in turn turns out to the connections and actions that you make externally. And this can be, if not aware of, right, somewhat manipulated. And this is, I think, the point that me and Steak were trying to kind of make about the way that we do this categorization and labels can also be used in a form of a detriment to the way that we use it.
No, I understand. And man, the whole thing, I mean, I don't want to go back in time, but like, it's going to sound stupid, but like how in World War II, one, they try to generalize, the people that they were putting in these prisons and these camps. They were trying to say that they were not human, or trying to label them something else, or not label them at all as human. So if you don't label them as human or as being people of sort of type, then it's easier to go ahead and do these bad things towards them. But if you actually recognize somebody as a human being, as them being themselves as unique, then let's say if a robber is trying to like rob me, but I say, hey, I have a family, I'm a kid, my name is this, my name is that, come on, then he'll have more of a heart and be like, I won't do this to him, man, damn, what am I doing? So that's what I was thinking about. But anyways.
Awesome. Go ahead, Shellfish. You have your hand up.
I'm like literally like my mouth is on the floor, shocked that you didn't say, well, all things are conscious and all things should be respected, because that just seems to be where you usually come from, Death. So Meta, so as like an experiment, if you are not on one of the AI prompting avenues right now, or like say I do Midjourney, like that's why I always bring it up. But if you do Midjourney and you take every person in this room and you tell them to prompt you something with a water bottle, what I prompt, what Hope prompts, Steph, NYC, like everybody in here will bring a different version of water bottle, and it's the coolest thing you can ever see. Like if you go into Discord and you go onto the Midjourney site, they'll do these prompting exercises where they say, okay, today's sandcastles, and everybody has to prompt, and nobody, there's not one piece of art that is alike. So the way that we express things, it's really important, and it's going to be one of the, I think, the most important jobs in the future, because we're going to be able to express ourselves through thought, through speech, through these art platforms, and I don't know. You just really need to start getting used to expressing yourself and other people in that way. And I don't know, Meta, have you tried it out yet?
Brian Cox has a great article about that, or a great video about that. Do you know him, Shellfish?
I don't. I
Brian Cox is a very pleasant man to listen to in regards to physics, basically, and the universe, and it's just a phenomenal speaker. It's right up your alley, trust me. And he touches on the fact that he says that one of the prime, rare resources we might have in even our galaxy might be our human consciousness, and that we actually have a responsibility to the universe that we are part of. We're part of the universe on controlling our own conscious. And I thought that was incredibly profound, especially coming from a physicist.
I mean, the specific identity of particular molecules that have been associated in a different formation that creates a certain electromagnetic frequency of awareness. I completely agree, and I think each individual aspect of every particle that could be of existence have some sort of different specification of the way that it has awareness or is awareness, and this being something that we may have in a difference to other things that might exist outside of us.
You said Shelf, you said try what? You said try like asking somebody for something and it's probably give
Well,
me a
so it's
sandcastle.
just like I guess kind of like a little experiment you can do. You can have right now, if you've never used Midjourney, there's obviously other ones out there, but I say that because it's what I utilize. But I think they'll give you like 20 free prompts. You can go into a space and like go in there with like Lady K and like all the people that you hang out with. On a regular, and just do that as a like one of your nights, like a game night. Say, okay, everybody download this into Discord. Let's all do Midjourney tonight, and we'll do kind of like Pictionary, because this is actually kind of where I started off playing with with like the AI back in November. We would just go in and we would go into a space and discuss and kind of familiarize ourselves with the different AI programs and what it was capable of doing. And so if you just go in there with the just use it as a fun art game. Just start that out. Say, okay, I'm gonna do like I said, like a Coke bottle or a glass of wine, and see what each person prompts, and then you can all post your pictures and discuss it. So they have like those wine and art classes or whatever that you can do locally. Well, why not do it on Twitter, like as a fun interaction with each other?
Right, right. So I mean, if I were to say, draw me a plug, what is it called? Oh yeah, plug, and then I'll just draw like the American style plug versus the, Europeans plug because it's different, right? So yeah, I got what you're
Of
saying.
course. So, like when you said plug, you immediately thought of like the different types of plugs. I was like, I was still on my music in kick in my head, so I was thinking of a radio like attaching to the wall. And I'm sure Hope had a different way of thinking about it, just like everybody else. They bring their daily lives, their subjective experiences to it. So it's a lot of fun. You can play with this and experiment and create. Like that's like the whole point is like
Right, right.
creating our being
But in
part of the
but
future, like manifesting and creating our future through these prompts.
yeah, but in the end, we're all saying the same thing, but in different styles of the same object that we're speaking of. but different styles of it. I got you. I mean, I used to. I mean, I used to be certified like in interpreting and stuff like that. But they would say as long as you get to as long as you interpret something to you have the same. It doesn't matter the word doesn't have to be the exact word, but as long as you have the same meaning.
Well, what languages were you interpreting?
I cannot say.
Oh, interesting. All right. So not to switch the topic on you guys, but to switch the topic. If you guys want to and would like to, maybe go up to some of the things above with talking about fusion and space travel, and maybe we could start off by talking about these different types of nuclear reactors that the Department of Energy and Office of Nuclear Energy is looking at, and thoughts on not these large nuclear reactors that we think of today, which typically are attached to turbines and then create smoke, which then turns the turbines, but actually, thinking about things like microreactors or small modular reactors that are having atomic fusion going on inside of the reactor itself, and a source of the ability to have the energy that actually leaves the said structure through cables and wiring, rather than having a large building have to be built with all of these different parts being associated with it. KJ, though, you came up, you haven't spoken yet.
Yes,
Thank you
apologies
for
for
raising
the
your hand, and
man,
then
apologies for the background noise. I'll just ask my question and bounce. Elon Musk is bullish on more small modular nuclear, but he uses the word fission, FISSION. He says fusion is unnecessary. Can you explain the difference?
Well, so it is the biggest difference is just that. So fusion is trying to fuse together these different atomic structures, and by doing so, the polarity of magnetation and electricity, right, energy, that comes from doing so, the explosion, if you will, right, is energy that we would want. Fission is the exact opposite. Instead of having them kind of fuse together, they're bouncing around and bouncing off of each other inside of these structures. And so, yeah, I think if you're thinking about a small modular reactor, possibly doing something like a liquid metal fast reactors, right? And so, on the post above, I have one of these particular red fast reactors using sodium or lead as a coolant. They can operate at high temperatures and low pressures with demonstrated passive safety features. So since they operate with this fast neutron spectrum, which is just the subatomic range of X-ray, I think that it would be operating on, or the energy that would be getting created from it. They can be set up to burn long-lived fission products like neptunium and americium. So this would be greatly reduce long-term disposal of nuclear waste. Hope, though, go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you. No, it's okay. I'm still learning social cues, so I never know when the appropriate time is to come in, or you end up interrupting someone. So I'm still learning all that. But I wanted to raise something, and I think it's probably a discussion for like a little bit later, as the discussion for fusion and fission and space travel gets more defined throughout our conversation today. But it's something when it comes to like fusion in space or fission in space. It's as far as like an energy system, whether it be what people want to use for propellant, as far as for travel, to keep different stations going, or to propel energy, as far as if we're mining on the moon, or just keeping a small colony going from that aspect. It's probably definitely cleaner and safer than anything that is we're currently using. as far as it makes sense. Like, I think they were talking about when it came to like Opportunity and some of the other rovers, it's just like if they had more nuclear based or fusion based as far as an energy source, a lot of the problems they had with it dying, not functioning, going offline would have been especially because you don't really have people out there or other rovers out there continuously doing maintenance, a little bit more easier. But it also brings up, as it brings in, it's cleaner and it definitely is safer in a lot of different regards, environmentally. But it also is like something to think of when it comes like a space station, like a grain of sand in space, going at a certain rate can puncture something. And it's like when you drop a penny from a building and the speed rate has it smash in, and so it creates that dent that it wouldn't otherwise do. Something as small as a grain of sand going at a certain rate, unencumbered, can put a dent in that makes repairs so much more difficult, let alone if people accidentally point a laser in the wrong direction as they're doing solar cells and it hits the wrong thing, and then the reactor goes off, or something just collides with it naturally out in space. Or there's different like safety issues, I would think, that we would have to write like a different rule book on safety. And I only mention this not because I'm negative against. I'm very much a proponent for. I raise this as to get our minds going in the direction of being proactive so that we can already be ahead of it and solve it and be able to have it, and not have some of the issues. I think a lot of the issues, whether it be a dam, whether it be other nuclear sites, is just maintenance, and then also thinking ahead, especially disaster-oriented thinking ahead. And so that's kind of why I raised some of these questions today. It's because they could be, as long as we get ahead of them, we can solve them. I believe innovation is definitely the answer.
Yeah, I completely agree, and maybe I'll touch on more of the space travel aspect and different things. Going back to what KJ had asked before, that I read that I think that small modular reactors and even micro reactors are going to be something that is probably going to be widely used, especially in things like low Earth orbit satellites and orbital stations that'll exist in outer space. It just makes a lot more sense for sustainable energy, and it already is in some cases used and has been tested. I do think, though, when I think about nuclear reactors and fusion, I don't only think about it, though, from this sense of having this clean renewable energy source for planet Earth and for all of us, and sustainable habitats, but the ability to maybe learn how to change the polarity on these different elements before they would go into a fusion setting. And so, take hydrogen, for instance, which is the largest abundant element in the universe, as far as we can tell and see, other than dark matter or dark energy, which makes up somewhat of 99% of what the universe actually is, or at least what we think. And being able to switch the polarity on the hydrogen molecules, and so instead of having this fusing of say an H3 helium and hydrogen, you could have hydrogen and anti-hydrogen kind of fusing together, and maybe the power that would be created in something like this antimatter fusion with matter could create such a polarity difference, which we could open up a wormhole. And this goes, into one of the videos I have posted above, right? How physicists created a holographic wormhole in a quantum computer. If we've already proven the state and the ability for Einstein's equation of ER equals EPR to theoretically be possible, taking a black hole from a distant galaxy far away, we recreated it on a simulation, a holographic simulation, and through a wormhole that was created, put a qubit worth of information through a very small piece of information, and the qubit came out the other side, right? And so theoretically, this proves this ability from one state of matter to go through this superposition and end up at a different point in time and space. And with this connection kind of being, something that was ultimately thought about and talked about for many years before being done on a simulation, um, I think the real question is not can it be done now, but how can it be done? And so if we can figure out, going back to these molecular formations of atomic, subatomic bosons and fermions that build into these different molecular formations of chemistry, which ones do we use and pick, and how do we cut them apart and combine them together that creates this fusion, or this means of being able to warp time itself?
You said this object went through the world intact. It came out intact, without being like all messed up, like Willy Wonka.
Well, it was a piece of data. It wasn't theoretically an assimilation of molecules of the way that like a human being is composed of.
Yeah, it was definitely information that was sent on the quantum level. Um, the information in a lot of ways can be faster than light. So, but they've been able to duplicate it. I think, what is it, 2 or 3 times, sending the information data sets. But as far as like sending things over with organic matter, I people like to talk about like the work capability or time capability, and of course, hypothetically, it's possible, and they're getting enough comparable data to try to push it towards the theoretical. But when we're talking about even something as sending over something as compressing a film rate or transferring information over, there's data that's always lost. You can't help with that. And then if you talk about organic matter on the biological level, what would we be willing to lose on the transfer rate? Like, it won't exactly be a copy. What was original there will no longer exist ever. And so it's just easier to say that like you could power a drone remotely, which they've been able to do with several different types of technology from the neurological level. That would make a lot more sense. Like, it would be safer. It would make a lot more sense than say to, and then just expand the rate of, or amplify the rate in which you can transfer that information, versus then trying to physically propel people or push people through certain places. I think it's much more interesting from a theoretical perspective to actually just then compress areas and then have the organic matter cross that area, like crossing a line, to where they're not disturbed on any biological level subset, but the things around it, as far as whether it be air or space, is not necessarily in a dynamic of organic matter being changed in any specific way, and so therefore playing with it like folding a piece of paper would probably be, but it's the energy rate of trying to do that. But I think that and that's not really being explored quite heavily, but I think if we went more in that direction, it would probably be not only faster, more efficient, but also safer.
Yeah, I think there's never ever one way is the only way. I think there's probably many possibilities and ways that the function of this action could be done. Though I do think, 2 ways being the most probable. One being what you just explained. What we would do is if you take something like the Large Hadron Collider, right, that CERN has been utilizing, and Hadron Collider that's in China and the one that's being built in the United States, and you have these amounts of forces of energies that are being bashed together, right? In this sense of forcing particles to smash into each other, it creates this gravitational bubble, or right, this wave formation, but to protect the or you could think about it in the form that we would use it if we were to go through this state, right? You would create the gravitational wave around the ship or orbital spaceship. And so, yeah, you wouldn't even be flying. You would essentially just be moving from one instance of space to the next. And so, the reference I really mean is when I say going through time, is, you know, if you think of our universe as hyperbolic, and so time itself being only relative in a third dimensional perception, if you you know, I believe that we could fold space itself onto itself, and so right, time is not relative at this state, and so you can exist anywhere at any point in time and space. You just have to know where to put the dot down that you want to exist on, right, which goes into somewhat of a superpositional state.
That sounds like you're pressing the button from 3D to 2D for like a split second.
Well, Meta, think of our brain. Like, our brain was the perfect quantum computer. I mean, it's doing wormholes on a daily basis with the wrinkles and ripples that we have in it.
I mean, I wanted to say like what Hope, yeah, it's true. But I wanted to say like what Hope said, like, you know, I mean, that's intriguing. Is like if you're going through a wormhole, then you lose something during that moves. Like you were saying, Hope.
Well, okay,
What do we?
so second option, right? Second option in the state of what she would be correct is if we were to basically electrify everything that was going through this assimilation of actionable state difference, you would be recreated on the other sense, in the sense of like a teleportation, right? Where you kind of walk through a beam of energy. So it really isn't you, it's a replication or a copy of you. It just should be an exact replication of the atomic states, like in the same form and manner they were. So you have all the identity of your memories and everything intact. But yeah, you know, it's like, what do you?
Wait.
Maybe you
So
lose a couple protons or a couple neutron, you know, a
okay.
couple atoms.
So
If
I'm
I
sorry,
may,
Hope. That
I'm
so
yeah, I'm sorry, Meta.
You got
I want to comment back on Death Brinder's comment from your comment, Meta. Is because I know that's an exciting kind of science when we watch it from like a sci-fi, but morally, I think, which is different than ethically, because if you make it a law, it's ethical. But from a moral standpoint, and especially for money, resources, I don't think people understand what it like a lot. Maybe I shouldn't word it that way. Maybe there's a lot of people who understand, and I apologize for maybe how I worded that. But what it actually takes to actually create something organically from very specific levels, it really is like taking 100 to sometimes 1,000 sperm to egg. Not two people coming together, at 100, destroying them, and then having the one replication that you're actually going to use. Then you're going to use that to lose information, and then use it as you please, and then dissipate it, and then might even have the implications that through the environment exchange, it somehow has different types of consciousness itself, and then it's still losing. So I think that we're playing with ideas that seem fun when we're watching sci-fi, but from like a human standpoint, and especially when we're talking about like, if anybody, I think a lot of people here knows, like, you put somebody in a jet and you break the sound barrier, and very specific people are trained in very specific ways to be able to take the speeds that get you sick, that get you to pass out, that gets your organic matter, even with astronauts, to go through all kinds of issues. So let alone having that propellant to be able to cross certain lines. That's why I know that's just like it's not something that's heavily talked about, because the sci-fi stuff is so much more exciting right now. But when you just fold an area and then it crosses over, it's almost as if you thought you just saw it teleported over, but it hasn't. And then for the rest, if you have like a casing, like a robotic casing, and then you just then transfer the data rate while you're sitting at home, or whatever location that you're in, and then power it that way. Nothing from the moral standpoint and nothing from the data standpoint is lost. And so I'm just kind of raising these as a further consideration than the stuff that we're already really in tandem with the things we're already excited about and probably already going to do.
Well, Hope, I'll tell you, I will definitely not be the first person to walk through the beam of light if it's a teleportation device, but I might be like the 50th or something like that, you know?
I'll go after you.
Shellfish, though, go ahead. You got your hand up.
Yeah, I think it's really important that we're discussing all these aspects of it, because we are prompting and giving the simulation something to run through and just generate the hell out of like all these things that we think and put out there. Because I mean, if they're not able to think of them on their own, the idea that we're dreaming them up is definitely giving them a run for their money.
So so going back to fusion, something that Shellfish, you were particularly enjoying talking about last week, and something that you've been researching, right? The H3 or the helium-3 mineral that when used as broken down as the isotopes, the nuclear fission is much more sustainable in the means of creating energy input that can be utilized in a way that doesn't take more energy being input into it than you do actually from getting out into the fusion. And you know what, actually should go get this new video where there are new techniques that are already almost 2 years old, where there are nuclear reactors that do have, like I mentioned earlier, the ability to have different electrical apparatuses plugged into them by wires, so that it's as easy as plugging it into the electrical grid, right? They come as a plug and play, rather than having to have this building built where you have turbines attached to it, and this was what actually creates the electrical output for a grid on a planet, or maybe something like an orbital system. And you know, going into to future space travel and larger orbital systems, I do personally think that in the next 100 years, 150 years or so, we'll see something like a Dyson ring most likely start to get built, in my personal opinion, with the helps of these different super intelligence and tool sets that I really do think that we'll have in the next 25 to 30 years as a species. Right. And these different fusion and energy techniques that will develop as a multi-planetary species.
You know what, Shellfish? He said Dyson. You know what I thought about? I thought about the vacuum. But I know what he's talking about, like the Halo ring, right?
Yeah, it's because it's a kid came from a man who his name was. Never mind. It doesn't matter. Though very similar in concept with the Dyson's ring or Dyson sphere. You have a Dyson sphere, which typically would be built around a star or a celestial object that has an immense amount of energy coming from it. And you could think of it as just a. There are a couple other terms actually that I've read and thought about. I can't think of at the top of my head though right now.
Right. My apologies also, but okay, couldn't we build, like, speaking of like energy and fusion? Couldn't we just build like a spaceship or some sort of like a Halo ring that's powered by these stars, right? By their light, by their energy, right? So like you'll have infinite energy in space. Like, couldn't we just create something from Earth aiming towards a star? If the sun goes down, well, I don't know, I guess say down, but if the Earth turns around away from the sun, it'll still be giving us power because this object is in space from the Earth to space. You know what I'm saying? So always having infinite power.
So the cool thing, I was watching one of the videos. I'm sure Death can elaborate more on this, but one of the videos was saying that like Jupiter and Saturn, like the gaseous planets, are rich in helium-3. So they're technically like a gas station, and they can kind of recharge. And how many other solar systems actually have gaseous planets that once they reach their destination, they can just kind of refuel on these fueling stations, basically. Kind of cool, huh?
Yeah. Even past that, I think there being multiple different fuels being needed, right? One for your takeoff and liftoff if you land on asteroids and planets, right? You need some sort of rocket propellant or like a real nice thrust that isn't going to be an explosion though that blows up the ship from underneath you. And so I definitely think being able to refuel from orbital stations, and not only that, but maybe the orbital station being able to locate hydrogen in.
Yes, I was going to say hydrogen. Wow. So I was right. Wow, that's amazing. Good.
Well, hydrogen being the most abundant chemical in the universe, as far as that we can tell.
Yeah, like you basically have to like pull in that hydrogen to create that thrust.
Well, it's one of the methods. It's probably the most will be one of the most economical methods in space travel. Helium also being a very abundant gas, but also having the ability to have some sort of nuclear reactors that exist inside of the ship at the same time too, I think is important. And going to something like Star Wars, you kind of do see this where the ships have thrusters, right, rockets, and there are means of uh, multi-planetary travel by just rocket thrust. And at the same time, there's also this ability to have this tool set that could be some sort of warp drive. Go ahead, though, Shellfish.
I'm going to say this, but it's going to sound stupid as hell, so I'm probably going to get laughed at. So so I know on Earth we have like the ley lines and the magnetic grid lines, etc. Right? That's what we want to do with the I don't know, at Epcot Center. Like we have like the trains that run on like the mag train grids, whatever. So they move the trains around. And I know we've talked about this in other spaces. Is there a such thing as like a gravitational magnetic wave, or is that like really ridiculous sounding?
Well, gravitational waves would be magnetic waves, but
So
create
would that not be a good propellant then?
Yeah, no, yes, it is, and this goes into something what we would call like a perpetual motion machine, right? If you have different polarities of superconducting magnets on opposite polarities, and you have a said reaction where they could exist inside of a machine that created some sort of friction from the polarities of them existing, yeah, you could create perpetual motion and perpetual energy that could be for never ending. This is also something used in some of the new train systems you were saying. I think that's what you mentioned at first, where they're using the polarity difference of these magnets to create these bullet trains that could potentially move at thousands of miles per hour if inside of a vacuum chamber.
And space is a giant vacuum, correct?
That's a good way to think about it. Yeah, I like that thought.
I wanted to say, are you talking about like Earth, or are you talking about like space, like magnetic? So basically, you would like, let's say you create a spaceship sort of machine that would go ahead and, let's say, use like some, what is it called, the magnetic waves of the vacuum of space, that you would go ahead and aim towards that like end you want to go, and the ship would just pull towards that magnetic whatever strength from it, whatever. Is that what you're saying, Shellfish?
I feel like I'm in remedial science class right now, so I can't believe I'm asking these questions. I'm so sorry.
Hey, me too.
I'm just
Shellfish.
learning off of this, and I'm building my rocket ship. So,
Right.
Welcome to the Space Hub Light. Go ahead and speak.
Thanks, man. Shellfish, you're so right on. When you think about the ley lines of Earth, you're talking about the magnetic nature of Earth. It's a big old torus ball of energy, and magnetism. And y'all are talking about, I think, Shellfish, what you were saying, could there be portals on Earth that operate magnetically and shoot us across the stars? Am I right?
Yeah, that's what it sounded like.
Not. I don't think that was
But
exactly
wait,
what she said.
I was asking Shellfish. I'm sorry.
Well, utilizing it in space, like I know that space is a vacuum,
Oh,
but I was trying to figure out like if there is actual magnetic waves that we could utilize just like we do on the planet. So yeah, I guess.
yeah, yeah. I think that's so much simpler to me because yes, I think that gravity is conquerable through our understanding of electricity, and if we get that, which they already got it, we just gotta get disclosed about it. Um, we'll be able to go anywhere, and there are portals on Earth. I think I do believe in that. And my only question is there some kind of worship or spiritual thing involved in accessing some of the doorways, and then where will they lead you, depending on what your spirit is, or is it all magnet energy, vibration, etc.? I don't know.
Well, hard like we were talking about like if you they kind of make fun of me because I think of it like having like a cloning or 3D printer. So like whatever planet you would go to, you would want to print your body to acclimate to whatever
Hmm.
surroundings, right? So yeah, it might be a 40-foot like ogre looking thing to be able to survive that terrain, or more of a mermaid that would be living under the water if it was on a moon
Hmm.
of Saturn, right? So there's all these different things that they may look very foreign to us, but it would be normal uh, for them, but almost demonic probably in our eyes, right?
Oh well, yeah. I don't know if I do believe in physical other beings yet. I'm really having a hard time with that big leap.
I think the only limitation is the one that you want to put on it.
True. Yeah, I was just reading about Atlantis. So yeah.
There are so many blue creatures. I'm kind of curious, like why, what would manifest so many blue creatures in our
So,
our history?
so I think that the more that we search through the universe, the more that we're actually going to find the favorite colors of the universe are actually purple and blue. And so, when you go into chemistry itself, the way that our Earth has developed with the sun that has a certain magnitude of energy that's coming towards our Earth, and through this electromagnetic field, certain colors and chemicals are created. Uh, Chlorophyll being a later preset to retina, uh, and this is developed because of the way that our star is blasting energy at our planet, and so the way that we have green plants actually is a very rare chance where retina seems to be more of the dominant color spectrum that plants will be in the far off universe as far as we see through all of the different pictures we've taken with the different telescopes we have in outer space. I have a video you'd enjoy, although I think you may have watched it before from the YouTube Melody Shoot. So go ahead. We have some hands up. Cheesecake, go ahead, though, man. I don't think you've gotten a chance to speak yet, and then Meta.
Meta was first, actually.
If
No,
you'd
no,
like to,
that's
if
fine.
you'd like to let him speak first. I mean, you haven't spoken yet first, so I wanted to give you the stage. But if you'd like Meta to
All
speak
right.
first,
Well, that I was just going to ask what you thought because you're talking about green and with the spectrum of colors. Because I know this is what they teach us in schools that it's green, or I don't know if it's in school, but either way, where they say that you see green because it's not actually green. That's the color that it's not absorbing. Like plants, for instance, they don't absorb the color green. That's why it reflects back to us and we see it as green. What do you feel about that?
Well, it's just this. Colors are just a spectrum of electromagnetic frequencies, and so based off of what the plant has created from chemistry-wise, right? This chemical chlorophyll, which gives it its green color, is what we've seen through these imagery of the way that the spectrum of electromagnetic frequencies could possibly exist in the universe as a whole. Uh, Retina, or this purplish bluish color, kind of seems to be more of the dominant spectrum of what plants are manifesting, or the outcome of this energy frequency output. We can go into more of it, like, right, the plants have the process called photosynthesis, and so they absorb the energy from the sun, and through this photosynthesis they create these chemicals that create energy inside of the plant, so it is sustained. um, it's so interesting of a process, honestly, when you think about the way that so much of this exists. And so I some of the things make me kind of think like we don't even need really food or water. We have an abundant amount of it in the oxygen or air around us, and in atomic ways, I think. But
it's all frequency, so it's
correct.
all frequency.
So, but I think it's another conversation for another day. We got some hands up. Go, Meta. Go ahead though, and then KJ.
Yeah, because you're talking about no more chocolate or Chipotle's or Whataburgers. I mean, how's that survival?
So this is the constructs that we live on and amongst our society, right? The holds that we have externally to them. I am nonetheless. I am no different. I understand the the feast for wanting a burger every once in a while, right? Is this hunger that comes upon the physical self.
Or a steak.
Or steak, excellent steak. Yeah. I actually had a little piece of flat iron earlier I made on the grill earlier. But anyway, sorry. Meta, though, you got your hand up, and then KJ, go ahead.
So rewinding a little bit back, saying if you were to go through some wormhole, like unfolding time or whatever you want to call it, like someone was saying that it might not be you, it's just copying itself, but then somehow it is you, it copies everything from you. So then what exactly happens to you? And also, would you change in form if you were to move through a wormhole into like another universe? Would you change in like different like dimensions of yourself, like or what I'm saying, like would you change, the way you look without even?
Okay, so I think the option to have a different formation of self could be possible, but really have nothing to do with actually traveling or from existing one place and becoming the next. The second part of that, yeah, I mean, in the form of if you walked into a laser beam that then broke up all of the atomic structures that were you and then replicated them somewhere else, that another laser beam exists, right? And there was some sort of quantum loop between the two of these laser beams. Um, you are being broken down to an atomic scale, a subatomic scale. Theoretically, we don't have any evidence of where you are, what you are, and or right, what you would be at that moment. And then if we could recreate that on the other sense, right, and call it teleportation. Yeah, I don't know. There's a question behind that. That's what Hope was bringing up before, right? There's this like sketchy question. It's like, did you just lock your former self and you just create a new self, uh, right, at this different point, and maybe
Right,
the other
that's a
self is,
conundrum right there. Yeah, you don't know if it's
I don't
actually
know.
you.
Well, and how would you know? Because the self that is in this next third dimensional self has all the identity of the previous self and would not think it is a different self, and so. Um, I don't know. There's big questions,
Yeah, I'd
but
wait
really,
after like 500 people to go through there.
it's more maybe semantic worries than anything, but it's an interesting question. KJ, though, go ahead, man, and then.
This is a great space, and I was just thinking about all the different perspectives that everyone in this room has, and then you marry that with like all the sci-fi movies that many of us have watched through history, from weaving in bits of like Total Recall to more recently Avatar, and the thoughtfulness that people are using to talk about these concepts. It almost gives me a deja vu, or at a minimum helps me integrate these concepts that we may be preparing to realize that we're either in this endless loop and that we're about to meet our future selves. And I guess the reason that I'm thinking about that is like observing both children and my own desires. My own desire would be not just to vacation to a destination, but what if you could add the dimension of a destination at a specific time, right? You think about like, what would it be like to go to the Old West or see some dinosaurs or whatnot? And then you weave in the pragmatic approach that I think Hope Hop was talking about, like, oh, the risk of organic matter, and then you start to think of the avatar concept, and it's all helping me like deal with the potential shock that we're going to realize like we're the extraterrestrials or we're the aliens or it's just a more evolved future loop of ourselves, is what I'm thinking. So thanks for entertaining my crazy
That's like
sci-fi
that movie
concept.
Planet of the Apes, where the guy thought he was on a different planet, but he was on Earth all along.
Yeah, there you go.
Your future is your past.
The future
And
is your past. Yeah, there you go.
and sorry, I'll make maybe a couple more thoughts on some of the things that you brought up because I think they're very relative in a second. But Shellfish, go ahead, and then Steak.
So KJ, I have always like had that statement. I think it was from Buddha that said that you are what you think, or your thoughts are what you become. And as we come closer and closer to this like brain to brain, telepathy, telekinesis, thought prompting, like all these things, and the governor is actually taken off and we're like set free to like create. I think right now it's giving us a really quick lesson in our language. And if you think immediately, holy crap, there's a dinosaur in front of me, and like you're in this virtual reality or whatever may come, you may want to be able to like calm your thoughts down and turn that like giant dinosaur into like a fluffy animal or something, like be able to control it, right? So
100%.
but same with our health
100%.
too. Like if we had particle accelerators in our body, like if we were able to control our white blood cells, our red blood cells through our thoughts, like it should be, and these particle accelerators were at such a small scale that they're in our bodies, accelerating our thoughts. Think about that, like the longevity, curing your own cancer or creating it, like all of that type of stuff. So yeah, like the implications are like mind blowing.
Hey, Steak, before you jump in, I just wanted to thank you, Shellfish. You reminded me of the little tiny point I wanted to make in observing children, that they like to create worlds. I watch my 5 and 10-year-old collaborating, and whether it's Minecraft or Roblox, they love to create worlds. And then they get that, that little cushion of, oh, I can undo that or do this. But I just found it fascinating that, there's nature, they like that, but they want to create their own worlds. And I'm like, oh, I think so do we. Sorry, Steak, go for it.
Storytellers create worlds. Go. Yeah, Steak. Please go ahead.
So let me tell you a very short, quick story that probably resonates with a lot of you. Because I've been listening for a while now, and I might tie it back into, what's happening financially. I think finance used to serve the population to build society until this perversion of mass printing came along that we experienced in the past decades, and we experienced the population serving finance to build society, all to keep a system in place that has a purpose to preserve world order has kind of run its course and by the day becomes more obsolete. So I think through decentralization we strive to return back to having the system serve us. And by doing so, we open up the creativity to produce and experience art and science through these tools that we create in new innovations. So I just wanted to share that tidbit. I think that's what we're kind of experiencing right now as a paradigm shift in the world on a metaphysical level, on a cultural level, on a technological level. And I think that's what we're basically all trying to bring across as our point, right?
Yes, thank you for those words very much, Steak. And so there's something you brought up though, KJ, that I wanted to touch on. So thinking about time, and I really like the idea that Shellfish had with the virtual reality, because I think time, in the sense of going back to your previous existence of time in a line, I think is theoretically extremely dangerous and runs the risk of destroying multi-dimensional states in the form of multiverses or multiple universes. And so this interesting notion, though, that if you wanted to go back into like this relative difference that could have existed in a virtual set and not having any difference from what we kind of perceive as reality, I think that being really cool. But the thought, if you were to go back to a previous state of existence, it wouldn't be ever your past. It would be your a different universe's past or a different you's past. Because if you were to go back to your past, or you were going to go back to a past, it wouldn't be that past anymore. It would have been changed and altered. And so when you go back to the previous state that you were in, to expect all of the previous states to change, I think is incorrect. I think you've changed a different universal aspect in some sense, and I think you there's a dangerous notion that comes with it. I actually have this post. Let me get it real quick, actually.
While you're pulling that up, maybe that's how the universe keeps order. Because I hear, and I'm butchering the concept, but this idea that there are like infinite possibilities, that there's a death, with a different Twitter icon in a different universe. Maybe that whole multiverse concept is to entertain our future potential to do exactly what you just articulated.
Yeah, exactly. Every single possibility existing on top of themselves at the same exact time and notion, and the sense of you going back to one, breaking this kind of law. And I put up this metric above. It's called the Gödel metric, made by Kurt Gödel, where he theoretically thinks that he found a solution to general theory of relativity that modeled a strange and unusual rotating universe, but with the ability for allowing forward and backwards time travel. Um, and you see the way that this is kind of illustrated with these different almost black holes or time gaps in certain specific places. I think this mathematically runs the risk of destroying multiple universes by doing this kind of jumping metric, but could also be something that would be theoretically possible to be done. So I don't want to say that it's not possible. Crypto Beasto 808, welcome up, man. Any thoughts that you'd like to jump in on with the conversation? That
Hello, everybody. Yeah, I just got kind of in late. I'm trying to just get a grasp of the conversation. I know you guys talking about. Yeah, I just got the last 5 or 10 minutes or so of what you guys are talking about.
Well, we're talking a little bit more like fusion stuff with space travel mixed in with different types of things that could be like faster than light technologies and time itself. We got into a little bit of time travel there.
I don't know,
think is
but what I got in my mind from what you guys are talking, especially what you were explaining, I caught the tail end of what Selfish was saying. But in virtual worlds, we can test theoretical, stuff like how you were explaining of having a way to kind of see past, present, and future of how things change and how you can change different multiverses by doing certain things in a time that was recorded. Say you go back into history, you could actually have uh, algorithm and mechanism put in place to kind of not really foretell, but kind of foretell a certain event that can happen, like a possibility, like how they use the spread of disease, of an airborne disease within a game. That was one of the older games back in the days where people who were playing the game that wasn't even in contact with the origination of that disease, uh, down the line got in contact through another person that was affected by it. And that was before the pandemic happened and stuff like that, which was used. It was used to test how things can go virtually, which is wild, of how things like that can be tested in a virtual setting and kind of make sense of how things can play about.
Dude, when you just said that, I thought, what if that's the reality we're living in? And it just seems really real.
You know what's wild about that? The virtual world and the gaming space has been for thinking in a lot of these things that's we seeing out today. And I mean, if you look at some of the creators of these games and their backgrounds and what they do, is very versatile. You know, they're really deep into a lot of this tech that we are utilizing today, via drones, AR, VR, projected AR, machine learning, you know, and stuff like that, which is pretty crazy to see.
Yeah, this is something that Crow says all the time. He says once we're in a virtual reality setting where we cannot tell the difference between taking off the virtual headset or the virtual setting itself and what we call reality. The probability of understanding that we have been in an assimilation of assimilation this entire time becomes astronomically higher because it just makes the most sense if we're able to recreate it. Well, this theoretically makes a lot of sense that this just could be what everything is already. But I don't think that changes the notion behind reality nonetheless. I think it is still our realities we are experiencing.
That reminds me of that scene of the Matrix when he wakes up like in a whole bed of batteries of people. Like when he has all the tubes he's taking out of his mouth. You know, Neo. He just wakes up and realizes that he was in a simulation.
Yeah. But nonetheless, all those experiences that he
Lessons
had
were
were
real.
still.
Yeah, exactly. And then it makes me think about when people talk about psychedelic experiences and they're really dismissed in some circles.
Okay, you're breaking up.
I was just going to compare it to psychedelic experiences like real stuff too, if you kind of respect.
Did he let you for you guys, Tim?
Yeah, he did. I think he was talking about same thing with something with psychedelics experiences is where like you feel like I'm thinking like he was saying like it gets different reality, but the thing is that could we not? I mean, what if we're not in you know, like what's it called, like a virtual reality? What are we calling it?
A simulation,
Huh?
like a simulation.
Yeah, what if we're not in a simulation, but we're almost in the premises? I mean, we're at the beginning of putting ourselves in a simulations, and where we create the augmented intelligence. We'll find a way, like I guess, to I don't want to like Terminator shit, but get us stuck in a simulation where just like the Matrix. Like, what if that movie was actually giving us a warning, you know, of what could possibly happen to ourselves, being trapped in a virtual reality. I mean, us
Well,
now we're on
be in
Twitter,
the
and most
virtual
of us are.
reality, warning ourselves about being warned in the virtual reality.
I guess
Don't virtualize yourself more. What it's all about the layers, right? That was I'm not going to
the,
read
the, the
through it.
onions. No,
Yeah. No. Though. Oh, I lost my train of thought of what I was going to say. Now, hold on, give me 1 sec.
I mean, basically, are we creating our own? Go ahead.
I,
Sorry.
I I understand what you mean, Meta. I mean, like, there is a hypothesis out there. It's the black hole hypothesis that we're actually on the cusp. We haven't actually hit event horizon, but we're like pretty near. And that if that's the case, if we have bridged the gap between the event horizon, actually, and then as things are being kind of like pulled towards the center, things get displaced as far as time, almost like a projection. So it would be then a variance between what, like, if we're building the roads ahead now, we're not in a simulation, but we will be one in the future, and we're pretty far into building the infrastructure for that. And so if that, then it's just a matter of what point in time on the variance are we mixing in. But it's kind of like, I kind of find it like irrelevant, because we are so entrenched in building these concepts technologically, And this generation, especially the generation that are like 6 months old and been handed a phone, and they're going to have their education in elementary school in virtual reality. A lot of their lives, we're already cyborgs. We're already in a simulation of sorts. We're already playing out the narratives and constructs that are being written around us. And so within that framework, we're kind of already there. So the question was isn't really, are we fully integrated into a simulation concurrently, or is the real question is how does one adapt to that situation, and what does one really want to build ahead, whether one is in one or not. With that being in mind, that the society is a simulation society or a sim society.
That sounds like comparing simulation to cultural, because I guess we're in a basically we're in a change of culture or the way how things work now, and I guess everybody's trying to change the culture of things and moving towards another way. But go ahead.
Well, regardless if things if it's a simulation or not, everything is an assimilation of electromagnetic frequencies that have been bound together that creates gravity itself, and through these different what we think are bosons and fermions, creating mass and relevance in chemical structures. I mean, there's no denying, unless you know the answer behind what dark energy is, and all of the questions that we still have of the questions of, there's no denying that everything is at least an assimilation of this resonance and energy. And I think this interesting notion, Hope, of like this singularity event that could occur, being a black hole, or us being the black hole, like this interesting notion that if we were to try and test if it was a simulation, we would need the amount of energy output that the simulation is, and so theoretically all of energy of existence, because there would be no other way to theoretically test if it was a simulation. It would take the same magnitude of energy, and maybe that is singularity in itself, or the black hole that rewrites itself, and history rewrites and goes over these cycles, and this formation of energy.
I love
You
what
were
you said about the energy being so key. We're talking about potential quantum realms and like black hole existence, but what are we doing with our energy? And what you also you were talking about the nature of energy itself, and but I love that stuff. Yeah, that's great.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Meta.
I forgot what I was going to say, but great conversation.
Yeah, I think that it's not so much as are we. I think the question is, as kind of proposed, is what do we do with this energy? What do we do with the states that we're in and the states that we wish to go?
I couldn't agree more, Hope. I love this optimistic, pragmatic side of you, where it's you're ready to solve the problem at hand in an optimistic point of view of how can we take this tool and make it better for everyone. I love that.
That's what's great about Death. He's always optimistic, even when I'm pessimistic at times. And you guys bring hope. But here's hope, anyways. But anyways, I wanted to say what. So you were talking about CERN, right? And you stated that other big nations are creating their own type of CERN machine, right? Like some own, like
Well,
you said, China, right?
CERN is a very old company. I mean, CERN goes back to like the early days of the internet, with Tim Berners-Lee creating www, and having their hands in many different technological tools that govern the internet today. But the tool they have, well, I mean, one of the tools that they have being the Large Hadron Collider. They call it LHC because it's the largest hadron collider that exists in the world. But there are other ones that exist. One being in China, if I'm not mistaken, one in Russia also, and we're building one in the United States. It got passed in this large infrastructure package. I think it was something like $13 billion that was put aside to it. Now, it doesn't mean that it actually does manifest, but I know there are plans that are being worked on already, and agreements and contracts that are at least signed, that the building of it has at least started.
So this is kind of like basically, I mean, it goes with fusion, right? I mean, it's kind of like some sort of competition, like some sort of war with, not a war, but like
Well, I mean,
we call it fusion war.
this is not a large hadron collider is not necessarily fusion where you take the energy and use it for permeable use cases. This is the
Right.
particularly testing in the realms of particle physics of the interactions of these different masses of these subatomic particles, and trying to define what they are and how they interact with each other. And then you could take something like a quantum computer and the methodologies of like statistical mechanics and entropy, and try and eliminate entropy as a whole. And so you could, build systems or mechanical tools that produce energy with zero or almost nominal zero energy loss. And so these, things like Dyson spheres and all of these hyper advanced technologies that we might put with a type 1 or beyond civilization.
Right. But then we have let's put the negative part of it is we have they could create their own like micro black hole and then mess up the whole the whole universe, whatever it is, whatever they do, right?
Who? No. You talking about in CERN? I mean, on the Large Hadron Collider in CERN?
Yes, the Hadron Collider. If like they can create their own black. That's what people were scared of. That if they were to
Yeah,
turn it on and create some
they,
sort of.
they create a black hole that's the size of 0.003 microns. The amount of energy that it takes to create to create this black hole uh, is nowhere near enough to actually do something like damage the Earth or something. That it would take a tremendous amount of energy and mass to manifest the said black hole to sustain itself that could do damage. And this black hole that they're able to create only lasts something like 7 to 12 minutes at
Oh,
most.
well, that's cool.
Yeah, but what is able to be done is absorb the gravity or the mass, the electromagnetic frequencies that manifest around said object. And so from these kind of detections, we can kind of try and anticipate, well, what is a black hole and what is actually going on inside of it and what is around it.
So even that black hole was like microscopic, whatever it is. If I were to put my arm next to it, would it like take my arm with it, in, within the black hole?
Meta, yes, you are not allowed to be near the testing equipment at all when things are going on. Just for
Damn
the
it!
radio frequencies, that the radiation that comes off of these things, you can't be in the same facility while these high-powered electromagnetic
Do it for
I,
science, man.
I was thinking more like
do
Meta,
it for
kind of
science.
like Mr. Bean. I think he can't go near it just because he's another Mr. Bean.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, Meta! It's like, hey, do you have thousands of terawatts going on inside this? Can I enter the room? Like, you're gonna fry yourself, man.
No, he would enter it and there would be a bee, and then he would start swatting at the bee, and then it would like sting him, and then he would
Yeah,
have a.
yeah. Trust me, bro.
I've seen this episode.
It's trust me,
Trust me,
bro.
bro.
Science, bro.
Trust me, bro. I know what I'm doing, bro.
That's why even after the testing equipment is used, you have to go in there with radiation suits on, because just the leftover radiation from the high energy outputs could be harmful to the body.
Okay, so I won't touch it.
Yes, no touching it, Meta. Yeah.
Can I touch your black hole?
Can I touch right? Can I touch your
No, it has radiation.
ass?
I don't know. Can
Has
you get
It's electrifying.
can you come to the event horizon?
And
At
this,
a point of no return, right?
right? This going to like a warp drive though, Meta, or like this ability to have some
Uh,
tool to go through space and time. The most significant thing is being able to create some sort of a magnetic field around said object that protects you to be able to go through such a high intensity moment, right there. The amount of the vacuum of pressure that would probably theoretically be around the electromagnetic field could crush you in said millisecond, right? You'd be non-existent anymore. So that's definitely my thoughts. Probably the most significant thing to making it possible.
Oh. So, and how about something else? Could they find out a way to create some sort of like wormhole or like a Stargate. Could you create like a Stargate, some sort of system?
I like Stargate. Yeah.
Do you like the movie or the show? No, but like,
But so now, do we think of that though as a black hole, or
no.
is that just the ability to absorb atoms and then recreate them on another side, which is connected by some sort of quantum connection?
Yeah, but then you guys added that whole thing as copying yourself into like, and then going to the other side and then not being yourself. I mean, I don't know, but anyways, it could.
I think the biggest thing with a black hole is the associated mass that surrounds the black hole and the unknown notion that we're not necessarily sure the information that goes into this black hole, if it is going to come out the other side and where it's coming out the other side, right? Like, we theoretically can push data through it, creating our own wormhole, but it's like, um, we're not necessarily sure, and that goes into what Hope was saying. Maybe we are actually in a black hole right now, and everything is just a black hole, and we're kind of like experiencing
Oh,
singularity, which we perceive to be this notion of time because we seem to think that we are a persistent identity. But the interesting notion that even 30 seconds from now, all of the atomic structures inside of your body are different,
right.
and you have trillions of or quadrillions of neutrinos that are flying through you right now, some from the sun, some from the big bang of what we think the theoretical start of the universe was, and just all of these different resonance of energies that change your structure without you perceiving to have structural change, could be the singularity
So
itself.
that goes back to the other gentleman was saying like portals on Earth or whatever it is. I'm not trying to be like crazy, whatever, but I mean, there could be possible like portals or like, you know how there's areas in the Earth that has like less gravity or something. So like I was just thinking like, dude, with augmented intelligence or some sort of system, like it can map out the entire planet, see where these like, these portals are, or like even in like our close proximity of space, whatever, where these wormholes are, like, and all done like on on a shared system, like artificial intelligence, like on a blockchain or something.
They actually have a system like that, but not where they're finding how you're explaining, but using lidar technology and finding different how I can't get the word. Sorry, I stay outside. I'm trying to think of that word. I get back to it. But they have something where they're using drones and lidar to help with pinpointing certain things underground. Me and my friends, we have been using it to map out heaus, which is places where my ancestors have built that's covered. We had used that sort of technology for find underwater in the mountains, using drones and machine learning and AI to help pinpoint certain things, not just for heaus, but also helping with plants and certain birds that's far reach inside some of our mountains where we can't get to without damaging certain things that the ecosystem. So using drones and a lot of these different technologies help out, and a lot of it is on a shared system like Google's API and Google's Maps, which is crazy how deep and detailed that you can use these different APIs and build a virtual world using Unreal Engine. Not just Unreal Engine, some even closed. If some people have access to closed systems that's very more powerful than Unreal Engine, which is pretty crazy and to use. Right now, a lot of it is still yet in the early stages of being in use, just like the beta versions being used on Unreal Engine and what Google Maps and them have released. It's pretty crazy.
This is this is one of the reasons that we know Antarctica to be a great location to launch satellites and missiles off of, because the gravitational pull being much less of an intensity for the G-force wise in Antarctica comparably to somewhere in Florida or Texas, which still is some of the primary.
Wouldn't you be curious though to ever go to Antarctica and see like what the fuck did they build there? Like what kind of research centers are there that might not be disclosed? And apparently there's a whole city there, right?
Well, it's probably way below than above, I would figure, because it's quite harsh conditions above. But yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Oh, I posted a
I
video.
wouldn't doubt
They
it.
had this really cool guy that did a little tour of one of the facilities in Antarctica. I'll put it up top if you guys want, or actually I'll put it in the little bubble below.
Yeah, there's also a
It's really
skydiver.
cool.
There's also a skydiver that did a jump in a wingsuit over Antarctica.
Was that you?
But well, you know, that's a great compliment, man. I wish, but knowing me, that would probably be my last jump.
I mean, knowing you, I think you would do it.
Yeah, I probably would. Yeah, I probably would do it, but I probably shit my pants too.
But you'll still be doing it. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, of course, got to push those boundaries. But yeah, well, the thing is so fucking dangerous. I've looked into wingsuits, but
See, you looked into it, so we knew you would do it.
yeah, it's free. Yeah, it's pretty cool to do a free fall. I don't know if you've ever done that, but wingsuits are something else, man. If you fuck up a little, you kind of crash.
So,
Me and
speaking of
Ray's oldest
Antarctica,
school.
what about magnetic north? Supposedly, I seen a video where somebody said that how they name Black Rock. I mean, I don't want to get conspiratorial, but I am. I guess how they name Black Rock, and because I guess up north there's like a huge rock in the center of the North Pole, whatever it is, it's magnetic and shit. And I mean, have you heard about that?
The North Pole is not even our actual north siding pole anymore. I mean, it's more to the east, and same thing on the polarity of the poles.
I also never heard that the name of Black Rock is derived from the magnetic field.
I've never heard that either.
And we're
You heard it
claiming
first.
now over here, Des. Are you claiming East Side now, cuz?
What did you say? Sorry, Kota.
No, he was like, oh, it's East Side now. You claiming sides now over here. Nah, just kidding.
Right.
Wait, Death, are you talking about how like the Earth kind of shifted at one point?
Yeah,
Technically,
poles reverted at some point, right?
Right.
Yeah,
I heard about that.
point too. And I think we're technically theoretically experiencing as it slowly happens right now.
Yeah, I can feel it.
Can you feel it, Meta?
Oh no, that was just no. It's okay. No.
Okay.
Can you imagine what would happen if something like that would happen?
Well, even like a little bit, right? Like that, even like if it moves like a little bit, it'll just change the whole entire. It could change the whole ecosystem of the world, right?
Well, I think more.
Oh,
so,
sure, naturally, yeah.
Yeah, it would more so change. I would theoretically think climate, because it would change the way that the Earth is spinning based off of its mass to
Yeah,
spin.
but if it's gravitational, wouldn't it just happen rapidly?
You, this question, the notion though that if it did happen rapidly, there would be a widespread electromagnetic like an EMT that would be extremely dangerous to all of us. And
Oh yeah, your DNA would stop stimulating.
I don't.
Being
Yeah.
stimulated, basically, pretty much like the end of life, if that actually happens.
Wouldn't we also have like massive floods?
Yeah, I mean, you name it. It would be the countless.
I mean, we wouldn't even get to that point. Like, basically, your body would stop functioning. Like literally.
You'd just be
really.
Yeah, like your like your DNA legitimately like just stops like being stimulated. Like if it's not around like 7 or 7.83 like hertz, I would say, or like if it's off, I would say that it causes enhanced side effects.
Shellfish, you got your hand up. Go ahead, speak on the subject. Are you going to build the ark? Please let us know.
Right. No. There was some guy that was, I think, from Scotland, and he was following the progression of the northern pole as it's been slowly moving down into, I think, Russia. And he said that they had run simulations and that it has to hit a certain degree, and then there's like a big shift from north to south. I don't know if anybody had ever seen his. But I don't know how fast that's going to take place, if they're projecting in our lifetime or not.
So that comes into the place where people were talking about grand solar minimum, and that was a conspiracy as to why Russia was trying to take over like Ukraine or something because it's the breadbasket of the world, or they needed more land, I guess, for its population to survive or stuff. The grand solar minimum that I guess it's supposed to be, instead of getting hot, the world getting hotter, it's supposed to be getting colder.
Hey, Shellfish, was it the one that was using the multi-physics simulation software? The FTDT particle and the PIC, which is pretty crazy because it does use like it's an algorithm used within to simulate such activity that can happen theoretically.
You're speaking Spanish to me right now. I can pull up his YouTube video, and I'm sure he could elaborate on the tools that he used. I have no idea what you just said.
Yeah,
It's
so
great.
I do think that it will occur. It just I think for the most part we'd be able to tell before it occurs, and we'd be off this planet. I think before it does. I think we have a couple thousand years. Theoretically, we think from
If what occurs.
hopefully though, because just like what man said, we would pretty much all be instantly fried, as our DNA is bound together. Our atomic structures are bound together at about five. Well, our bodies are about 5 hertz. The Earth is relative at 7.4 to 8 hertz at all moments, and so yeah, I mean, the ripping of our DNA would essentially be the meltdown of our structural organic cells and every other most likely living organism on Earth.
Hold on. So if you're talking about if the Earth would tilt like a little bit more, or I guess
Not, not the Earth tilt if the poles dramatically shift.
the pole dramatically shift. So okay, but how come it doesn't affect us if we were to go into space?
What doesn't affect us if we were going to go to outer space?
Like
There is
if I would go to outer space, so me being on this planet and the pole shift while I'm on this planet, it would affect me. But if I were to go to space and that stuff happens on this planet, but I'm in space on some halo, like it's not gonna affect me.
Well, how would the polarity or the magnetic shift occur? I mean, you'd be in a device that you've created yourself and that that you control the technology behind, which would be creating the electromagnetic resonance that you per se live in. But this notion though of going out outer space and having a lot of radiation and electromagnetic waves that are being held at you, which is something that our Earth's electromagnetic field protects us from, is something that's much needed and is in space travel is going to be highly important. That's why when I talk about something like a Dyson's ring or some sort of like megalith structure that could house something like 10 billion to 100 billion or a trillion of our species, the importance of the materials that are used and the electromagnetic resonance that you will be able to create around said structure is truly one of the most important aspects to the survival of the species and the structure on the said structure. We need to be able to protect against the radiation and electromagnetic waves that will exist in outer space at any given moment.
But you're saying that if we were able to, mimic the world's electric magnetic fields, we'd be able to create life on planets that do not have life. I mean, not create, but sustain life. Like on Mars, we were to create some sort of electric magnetic field around like the area we want to live in. We'd be able to survive better. That's one of the foundations of our life.
Well, we need to create electromagnetic fields around us in general as organic beings. We won't even be able to exist in outer space if we're getting whacked with thousands upon thousands of megahertz of electromagnetic waves, and we exist in this organic resonance of 5.4 hertz typically, right? So it's definitely and I'm saying it like it's something that it's not going to be easily done. I personally think it really comes down to the right type of materials being used that can create some sort of rebound effect on the electromagnetic waves that could be shooting at it. But still
So
something.
what about the suits that they've created? Like, let's say for these guys going up into space on the rockets and they're getting hit by radiations inside those rocket ships, going to space station. Like, does those suits reflect, the radiation and create some sort of electromagnetic field or the spaceship?
Well, if you're talking about the low Earth orbit satellites, I mean they're still protected mostly by Earth's magnetic field, it's really when you start going towards the outer rings of our solar system and beyond the solar system, there is a tremendous amount of radiation that exists beyond there that wouldn't be protected by our all the solar system's movement and electromagnetic bubble of sphere that we think we perceive to have exist around our entire solar system. Actually, we think the solar system exists in somewhat of a bubble of electromagnetic protection, which really helps the solar system itself survive. Warmth, though, welcome up, man.
Hey,
And I'm a little past my. I was going to end it at 5:30, but I'll keep it going for another 10 minutes, and I'll close it up.
I have a very quick comment. I just wanted to say that they can tell that it takes thousands of years for there to be a polar shift by looking at fossilized magnetic rocks. Just for whatever that's worth, they know for sure how it works.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't think that we're anywhere near that point. At least that we would see in our near horizon, where we wouldn't have technology that we could all leave the planet if we were going to think it was going to occur. And destroy our species. At least theoretically, I think. But what man though? Go ahead, and then alien life.
Does it say I'm what, man? Like, is that my name on here? Oh, can you hear me though? Like,
So
does
yeah,
it say I'm what, man? Oh, I guess it didn't update. So I would say that I just wanted to pull it back a little bit, like in regards to like the DNA thing. It's not that like we will literally like fall apart. Like it's we will like progressively like get worse, like being like outer space, and that's not because like it completely stops stimulating your DNA. It's just that think about it like you're out of sync, like in a sense. And when you're out of sync, like your body just doesn't function like correctly. And now that we had this discussion, like I'm hypothesizing that this is like probably why, along with gravity, like why like the muscle loss in space is so rapid. This is probably like a reason for that, even though they work out really hard in space. So yeah, like I just wanted to pull it back a little bit. Like you're not gonna completely die. It's not completely over because you emit your own magnetic field. But it's you want to be like within those frequency ranges. I would say.
yeah, and just to your point, if we were going to live in outer space, we would really want to at least either learn how to change the molecular formation of the way that our cells are interacting with each other, and maybe more of a bionoid kind of structuring, and so maybe you could just by default control the aspects that kind of occur inside of the body from a chemical formation, and theoretically be able to not only have extension of life but be able to live in outer space in harsh conditions. Or we really have to create the right conditions, and that takes a whole bunch of chemistry and chemical compounds that would be needed to create some sort of orbital structure, and the volume itself, fill in the volume of space with compounds like oxygen and carbon and things that we have here. So also another very daunting task for sure. But alien, like, go ahead, man. Welcome up.
Oh, thank you so much, Internet, and I'm not sure that is that I'm not pronouncing it properly.
No, that's fine.
Anyway,
That is fun.
yes, that German speaking. Yes, thank you so much. Alien Light, we are unconditional love in the information that we're sharing because we recognize that is the field of unconditional love. And what I'm about to talk about real quick, and I know you got to go, so I'll be very brief, and I appreciate it. And this is a very intelligent space, and I search for this so hard all the time for a more intelligent conversation of quantum physics, particle mechanics and all of this. And this is what it is. We're a quantum physics, quantum mechanic research on the most amazing discovery. And we're posting it on video. You can see it I'm putting videos like crazy on YouTube, on Twitter right now. And if anyone wants to see the videos,
text me and I'll share the videos that I'm posting right now. And what we know it is DNA, the cosmic signal of DNA captured by cell phone on particle to wave in any reflection of water and the angular momentum of the sunlight. This is amazing, and we're getting a lot of slack. People are saying, no, these are camera lens flares. And we're arguing with people saying, please, no. The way this particle moves, when you excite the particle and becomes a wave, it is no undeniable gamma light DNA signal moving like a serpent, spin, 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 serpent spinning, and it's in the gamma spectrum. So the spinning DNA is a non-escape vortex of the Earth's magnetic field. It's spinning, right? And this DNA signal that we're showing is in that spectrum. It's spinning. The spin of the actual image depends on how much you can move the wave. And this gives information on the particle to wave research, right? And there's just so much to talk about on that. And you guys know about that. The wave particle research. There's just so much, is it a particle or is it a wave, right? And this is what we're showing, that somehow now we're capturing that indeed the particle, which is a circular particle, it can be a circle, and this is what we're showing. That it may start as like a dot, and that's a particle, right? But as you excite it, and I'm not sure by vibration, but I do know by water, anywhere by water, and the angle of the sunlight, which was preferably evening sunlight or morning sunrise, you will capture that this accelerated particle, but also the expression of the full UV light spectrum of light that we are immersed in, right? The space in front of us that we are immersed in, this invisible particles of light, and we're showing it. It's so amazing. We're doing like really a lot of research on the one color that keeps on showing up very much is pink. Pink, right? And so any one of us that is fair skinned, look at your skin, it's pink, right? Pink Himalayan sea salt, pink flamingos, a lot of birds, pink. And this particle is one of the most common that seems to show up. And what we say to anyone that doubts this, please look at the sun with your eyes in the morning sunrise, and in about 10 seconds, you'll see plasma flares coming out of the sun pink. They're beautiful. They're purple pink. And these are the gamma spectrums that we're detecting. So that this confirms that it is not a camera flare. These are actual particles that this intelligent camera spectrums, these cameras are super, really the most advanced cameras that can pick up these, what they call obstruction flares, are actually now our first visualization of light particles that are here on Earth that we're interacting with. I'm sorry, I've been on talk
That
too
reminds
long.
me what Death spoke of, that most things in the, I guess, I don't know if you said universe or purple and blue. And when you said purple,
from retina being the spectrum of light that's being absorbed and utilized by the plants. Yes, I think that we'll find the universe's color of plants and uh, in general nature will favors the purple and bluish colors rather than the green spectrum we see here. But that doesn't change anything from what he was saying. Thank you very much, Alien, for sharing all of that information.
Yeah, if anyone wants, I'm on every night at 8 o'clock on Spaces. I go into more deep if you want to know really about the signal. This signal is giving you life right now. I hope we understand that. It is timing. The timing of your heart is tied in with this DNA images we're showing. So I hope we understand how gravely consciousness this is happening right now. This is I'm not saying anything so honest on a conscious level that I know a lot of people can't even comprehend it, but I hope You can go and capture the video yourself. It's a signal of the most ancient creation of all life. How is there timing in life? What's the synchronicity of timing? All the geometry, patterns. It must be in a signal of intelligent form, right? And DNA is most the only one we know that carries all of the information of the cosmic universe. But it's not only in you, it's in this particle that I'm showing. Thank you, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
No, thank you for speaking, Alien. And we got a
Thank
couple
you.
up after you. I'm gonna let you guys speak, and then I'm gonna close up right after, just because I try and make them the spaces, and I record them on YouTube as digestible as I can. We went over 2 hours, although this conversation has been incredible, like always today. Oh, I'm sorry, Warmth left, but go ahead, Steak, and then 808.
Yeah, well, you're welcome for making it awesome, even though I hardly said a thing. But it's just,
Yeah, that's why I'm
I
here
just
with
want
for
to
the steak. That's all I'm here for.
I just want to show my appreciation to the space, the people speaking. I've been listening with a lot of joy and learned a lot of things as well, and also maybe discarded a few things that I'm like, yeah, I don't really know if I believe that, but I'm gonna look into it. I'm just not gonna discard it completely because we're all coming from different backgrounds and starting points in life. So, thank you, Dev, for hosting. Awesome. I didn't know you posted these on YouTube, so you should spread that link. And if you could, I'll look out for it. Yeah, and I think Crypto Beast got his hand up. So cheers. Thanks all.
Thank you very much, Steak. And you're right. I'm slacking on the YouTube. I really need to get on it and make the videos look a lot better from like a detail perspective and stuff. So I haven't posted it publicly, but you know what, I'm going to do that this Thursday and Friday. Actually, you reminded me. But 808, man, please go ahead and
Oh no, I just wanted to speak on a little bit on what the other speaker was talking about, the morning rays and the evening rays, sunrise and sunset. It is very healthy. A lot of indigenous cultures have ceremonies around those times of days. Well, a lot of Westerners like to call it ceremonies, but it's just understanding the benefits of being out in nature and understanding the effects it has, not just with sun rays, also with moonlight and the effects it has on the tidal waves, forces that's within our plants, how things grow and stuff. And it's crazy to see a lot of newer technology we have at our hands right now are being used to capture these moments that happen and have been happening around us for thousands and thousands of years. And a lot of our ancestors understood this on many different types of levels, which a lot of knowledge we had lost today due to, the course of time. But there is still yet knowledge that was left by them that capture these moments which we can build our foundation to learn from and grow from, which is amazing. And I like how you brought that up because it is very important to step outside and observe these points in time, which is very beneficial to us as we are organisms within the same space as what causes these things to occur, which is amazing. I love these spaces, these talks. Thank you.
no, thank you for coming 808 and Steak and Alien Life, Shellfish Meta. I mean these spaces mid right they wouldn't be what they were if it wasn't for all of the different diverse amount of mindsets and perspectives that come in and bring information. And I'm super thankful I'm not the only one that talks, and they're discussions and there's dialogue rather than just some sort of lecture. And so I thank all of you guys for coming. Meta, go ahead, man.
So when you're speaking about the halo, you're speaking about like terraforming. Is that what it's called?
No. Terraforming is taking existing structures like a planet that already orbits said sun or some typically, and then changing the formation of the face of that planet to be able to host life. I'm talking about taking resources from all different locations, the Earth, asteroids, and then combining them in one said location that exists in somewhere in space, and that location can be moved. A structure like this can actually move through outer space, whichever
Right.
direction.
So would you call that an artificial planet, or would you call it? What would you call that? Is the
A megastructure, and then you would call it whatever everybody names it. Maybe we call it Earth 2 or or
Sounds lame. Earth 2.
humanity structure 1, and then we have humanity structure 2 in a different solar system eventually. It's just, I think that's more semantics in the future. But
Yeah, but that'd be great to talk about your next show if you can. I guess
we can talk about megastructures and space stations and planetary orbiting stations, Dyson spheres and stuff next. That's fine. But I'm going to end it here. I really, once again, I thank everybody for coming to the space. I hope that everybody who listens to this information, if you do in the future, loves it as much as I did today, because I'm jumping up and down for like, I want to keep it going, but want to make it digestible at the same time. I'll be back Thursday, 3:30 Eastern Standard Time. But I love you guys, and I hope everybody has a good rest of the night.